Is there anyone at the waiting room? No, I think we're all good. I'll pause the music. There we go. Yes, kia ora, Etefana. Lovely that you all lifelong learners are here. 6 p.m. on Thursday evening. Mai ite kōpae kite urupā tātou ako tonu ai. We'll talk about HyFlex Learning and we'll kick off with karakia whakataki. Ko te kawa o runga, ko te kawa o raro, ko te kawa ora, ko te kawa ora. E rongo e whakairihia ki runga, turuturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīnā. Tīnā, hui e,
Yeah.
I do recognize some of your faces, but there's a couple that I haven't seen before. So, ko Milla Inkilä, toku ingoa, no Järvenpää, ki Fiinarana, ahau, kei Kirikiriroa, ahau enoho ana. So the accent comes from all the way from Finland, where the snow is melting little by little, springtime there, and that waka that I arrived to New Zealand with 8 years ago when I started to work for the Mind Lab. I'll get to fly again in July to see my whānau back in Finland. Oh, bliss. My whānau, now that I live in Kirikiriroa in Hamilton, that's us. A 3-year-old, the other blondie, is flying with me in July, but then my partner Matt will stay home with the 7-year-old, who's the newest member of our family since New Year. So interesting to get a 7-year-old who's our daughter's cousin. So our whānau is a bit bigger. Interestingly, has actually provided kind of opportunity to see school life from a different angle again, since Tilly's just 3, so has been an interesting year from that point of view also. I might even quote that when we start to talk about HyFlex Learning. But yes, 8 years at the Mind Lab, loving it. Still, after all these years, I get to work with people like Tim. Here you go, your turn.
Nā mihi nui kia koe. Ko ex mo te maunga, ko Linti awa, ko Atlantic te moana no Ingarangi ahau. E tūranga nui a kiwa tōku kāinga. Ko Tim Gander ahau, Phoebe taku taonga, tōku toru a Māua tamariki, ko Shannon, ko Jago, ko Bluebell, o rātou ingoa, nō reira tēnā tātou katoa. Lovely to see everyone. Thanks, Mila, for the introduction. My name's Tim Gander, and you can probably tell by the strange accent that I've got, I'm English, and I've been here in New Zealand for 15 years, and we're based down in Titairawhiti, and we've brought our family up there. We've got 3 lovely children. You can see various stages in those pictures. I only just updated that today because I realized that the original one I had that was slightly behind was from about 8 years ago when I first started working at the Mind Lab with Mila. And I actually remember our first session that we talked together, Mila, a long time ago on the postgrad course. So yeah, I'm based in Gizzy, and previous to working at the Mind Lab, I was a teacher at Gizzy Boys High School. Really enjoyed it, worked there for 10 years, and it was hard to leave, but I'm really thankful to be working here and with the Mind Lab. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the Mind Lab. I know some of you would have come across us before, but Mind Lab's probably, I think it's been around since 2013. France has founded the Mind Lab officially, and we've sort of established ourselves now as the New Zealand's most innovative postgrad education provider. We've got a wide range of courses, and we're creating programs to meet the needs of schools, workplaces, and leaders of the future. Our key focus is making sustainable futures and impactful futures, and the thoughtful implications based in technology and how we can really modify our practice and be responsive to change to make sure that everybody's got an equitable chance to succeed, and look forward to hopefully positive futures. We're currently running quite a few courses around masters, but we're also looking to introduce micro-credentials and stacking learning as well. So we know that people are thirsty for learning, and the online learning is always a part that is useful to integrate into any type of program. So we've been doing that for a long time, and yeah, we're glad to have you along tonight to learn a bit more about HyFlex Learning. Mila's going to show us a quick video about our education program quickly. And I'll mute my mic. There's a bit of rain in the background, but you can't hear it.
At the Mind Lab, we've heeded our own advice and taken a moment to pause and reflect and figure out what we're here to do. Our goals as an organisation are to build capability, knowledge and confidence. But from recent times, we've been reminded of why we do what we do. Because in the pursuit of a more resilient society, we're here for teachers. We're here to support you in a bunch of ways, offering resources and guidance during times of change, serving up fun, learning-based content for kids, equipping you to embrace the digital technologies Hangarau Matahiko curriculum content, or supporting you to build your knowledge of contemporary practices and confidently implement change. It's what this support does that is transformational. From small steps to giant leaps, it builds capability, which builds confidence, which supports inspirational classrooms. And because we're all about creating impactful futures, who better to back for the future than teachers?
Thanks, Mila. Just before we carry on, I know most of us would have had some sort of interactions using an online video conferencing software, but obviously we're using Zoom, and not everyone would have used Zoom a lot in the past. But just be aware of the different buttons we've got here to help us mute when we want to talk. It's quite a small group today, which is really nice. So I'm going to get a bit of interaction going. We're going to be offering their ideas and their opinions and thoughts. So we'd really love you to speak up. If you have got a camera, like I said, and you're happy to share your background of whatever's going on, please turn that on. That'd be really great. And of course, raise your hand. You can access those controls by clicking on the three dots on the bottom right. It's an opportunity to react to different parts of it, and also send messages and use the chat. You might even recognize someone that you haven't seen for a long time in the different of views, and you can access that in the top right by clicking on the grid or the presenter view. And you might even send someone a private message. You might do that too. Start a little bit of a chat. That was just a quick recap. We've also got these slides available for you as well, and you can access those by visiting that tiny URL, or you can, we'll send them to you after as well.
Well, we'll start with a quick poll, since we're going to talk about HyFlex Learning. So, and there's other terms that are kind of relating to that. Which one of these are you familiar with? Just so that we kind of know the terminology that we'll use today and what things to focus on. 7 of you have answered. Most of you have answered yes. I'll admit a couple of people from the waiting room to join too. Welcome on board. There's a Zoom poll going on straight away. Could be that you get that pop on your screen when you join in. Which of these terms are you familiar with? If you fill that in, we'll know where to start.
I sense of urgency in there, Mila, with the timer ticking away. It puts a lot of pressure on you, I think. I hope everyone's taking part. Everyone's giving it a go. 85% I can see. Haven't pressed the button. So.
I'll end the poll and I'll share the results with you. There you go. So it's nice that there's some of you, like if you, Dave, for example, said that you do know what HyFlex Learning is about. So there's a couple of us MindLab staff members here too, but mostly looks like it's blended learning that we are most familiar with, hybrid learning, quite familiar, even synchronous and asynchronous, but not that many. So yeah, just so that we know that, and it's good. This is the right place to be to talk about HyFlex Learning and understanding that more. How does that relate to these other terms? Cool. That helps us, Tim, doesn't it?
It does, Mila, because we're going to be talking about these things in a little more detail today. And obviously, HyFlex Learning is the focus of short webinar. But these terms have been around for quite a long time. And on the next slide, it shows us, the terms of blended learning and hybrid learning have been around since the early 2000s, really. And it's been used in educational institutions and commercial training. And then it was applied in a little bit of a different way. And I was around in those days, obviously, and I remember those dot matrix printers. You can remember those, and they just zinged along. It was so satisfying. I looked at a video of one today because I just wanted to look at the technology we had available in the 2000s, and it's just so satisfying seeing the paper come through and the text just printing across the top of it, and the noise. You got to watch a video of it and look at the noise. We're not here to talk about dot matrix printers. We're talking about how different it was when these terms were brought in, and they were applied in different ways than we do now. And that's why we're talking about HyFlex Learning, and Mila's just going to talk about how things have changed a little bit since the latest interruption.
And I guess the latest disruptions like these, Zoom, we are Zooming more and more, or using Google Meets or Microsoft Teams. Perhaps teachers are even a bit tech fatigued that all of a sudden all of this has come at the same time as there has been the need to use that. So pandemic has hit at the same time as these things have arrived. Some people are like panicking, like, I don't know how to use this. I should have known how to use that. Actually, no, this didn't even exist before the pandemic. Most of these things kind of came to the market at the same time as the pandemic hit. So that's why there has been such a big change. Steep learning curve for most of us, and we'll start with that. Can you find paper and pen somewhere nearby? Even a small piece of paper, pen, yeah, non-digital. If you want, you can also draw on a paint, for example, on your screen, wherever you can find somewhere to draw. Since what I would like you to do is this. Draw a graph on that paper that has these kind of last 2 years, 2020, 2021, 2022. What has been your learning curve like when it comes to hybrid learning? Hybrid learning, most of you were kind of familiar with. So hybrid learning, you can think about also blended learning if that helps. Ups and downs, your emotional highs and lows. I'll give you a couple of minutes to. No right way of doing that. You do your own graph, whatever it looks like.
I just realised, Mila, in doing this activity myself, where you put the start of the line on the positive to negative scale can tell you a lot about yourself, how positive you are. I just looked at my one. I'm really optimistic. I started really high up.
Mine goes quite up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, I started quite high. Axis there.
This type of an empathy drawing is one view like that design thinkers, for example, use, which is an interesting way of analyzing our emotions and experiences. Now that you have some ups and downs there, perhaps at least kind of the big picture of your journey, I'm gonna pop you in breakout room so that there's just 2 of you in the breakout room so that you'll get to talk with someone else. If you can show what yours looks like, you can do that. I'll give 6 minutes, so 3-ish minutes each if you share the time between the 2 of you.
Just had a quick thought. Nicola's driving, and if someone's paired up with Nicola, then they're going to have a very quiet conversation. Since we don't want Nicola to be distracted. Groups of 3?
Yes, I'll put. Yeah, and actually, yes, I'll put you, Sue, to that one there. Good. Thanks for that. Awesome. I'll open the rooms for 6 minutes. And since today is about HyFlex Learning, what we'll talk about soon. That means that you who are now viewing the recording, so joining asynchronously online, what I have there on gray, that's for you. So if you're viewing this after, you can still join. Perhaps it's a task that you do with someone at home, someone at work with, or even at least by yourself, so that you are reflecting on that. Go for it.
Oh, sorry about that. It's really hard, isn't it, just to be halfway through a conversation and you've got to finish it off. But that's one of the things we've got used to in this online and remote world that we're working in. I don't know if anyone, I know we've got small groups. It might be good just to hear from one or two people to see if any of the highs or lows were similar to both of you. Anyone willing to share?
I was surprised to discover that my partner in conversation and I had very similar highs and lows in many ways. So that was reassuring and quite lovely.
Thanks, Jude. That's nice to hear. It's good to hear that people are in the same boat across the country. Anyone else?
I was just sharing, I came at it slightly different. I was just getting out of breast cancer treatment after the first lockdown, and I was, because I was immune compromised, I was, when the kids went back to school, I couldn't come back to school, so I was the one remoting in, and it was really a very different way of experiencing, you know, usually it was us remoting out, but I was the one remoting in and having, I'd jump onto one computer screen and then they were taking photos of me because I'd turn up to that computer screen for that student and then I'd jump over there to that student and sort of made my way virtually around the room to have different conversations with kids. So it was really quite a different experience. Yeah.
Amazing to be on the other side of often the wall that we sort of put up in the classroom when we're communicating with the students from the classroom. To have to look in outside is really interesting.
Stuck at home, yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing. I mean, that's one of the things that I think the whole process did was allowed us to perhaps see into the homes and the lives of the students that we were working with and understand a little bit more about them on their levels. And obviously you got to do it the other way around and see what they were like in school from your home. But I think another thing which has been a theme in a lot of our discussions is that uncovered a lot of the assumptions I think that we had about our learners, about our students, about how they interacted with the learning. So there were definitely ups and downs. One of the resources that we often talk about on our DCL program is this vision that we've visited quite a lot of times, and it's for 2025, and Mila and myself and Dave started talking about this in 2015 because this is when it came out, but we thought it'd be really interesting because we're almost at 2025 and the pandemic has actually pushed a lot of these things in this vision forwards quite far. So we're getting a lot closer. One of the main things, and Mila's just put the link in there in the chat if anybody wants to have a look at it on their own computers. One of the main things, and this is something that Sue talked about in the chat that I had, was the access that we now have to way more open educational resources, OERs, and the pandemic supported people to share these resources that they've got far and wide just to help teaching and learning, and that supported us to network, supported us to make connections and really join up lots of different dots that we had globally around learning. So that was a real benefit. And another one of the things which is quite common, which has happened a bit more now, is establishing learning centres and people being able to learn from anywhere at any time, as people have talked about for a long time. But this has happened a bit more rapidly and people are more prepared to be learning from a local library or from the Kura or from a marae, which has got Wi-Fi access enabled, so the whole community can access the internet. So we just thought that's quite an interesting thing to reflect on, and it might be something that you might take back to your schools and discuss as well, saying, look, we're almost here, almost at 2025. What else do we need to do? How accurate was this vision? It was quite a good one to revisit.
It was really blue sky like 10 years ago, and then like now we've actually been pushed towards that. Like you, Lisa, said, even the teacher can be actually there remotely, and things like we were thinking like, oh, that's science fiction. Now it is happening. Yeah, that's
right. So we're going to move on now and talk about HyFlex. And luckily, it was the thing that people knew least about on our poll that I did at the beginning. Hopefully, this can be, inform you a little bit here. So HyFlex is short for hybrid flexible. And we really want to explore this as one particular type of hybrid learning with a specific definition and see how well it works, what it looks like in practice, and if anyone's had an experience of trying HyFlex learning. There's a real wide range of terms that are used often to describe HyFlex learning, and it's maybe multi-access or blended synchronous or synchronous hybrid or synchro mode, or there's lots of different things that have been talked about when referring to HyFlex learning. MBT is probably someone that's talked about it from the beginning, and this idea is around HyFlex learning is a version of the hybrid model with flexible participation. So students can attend fully online or fully face-to-face, or somewhere on that spectrum in between the two based on their personal choice or their need, or the things that are enabling them or stopping them from learning. And this can be synchronous or asynchronously, so in real time or in delayed contact. I was thinking about this earlier on, and it's a little bit like when you're shopping online. Okay, you know, you can do your online countdown shopping and you can order all your groceries, and you should have exactly the same experience as someone who's gone into the store. Just because you're shopping from home, it shouldn't mean you're not allowed to buy bananas. You're only allowed to get them from the shop. So HyFlex learning is allowing you to do it anytime from anywhere, but you get the same service and the same goods. And in our case, it's all about learning. And I think one of the key things that we really like about the idea of HyFlex learning is it really reduces a lot of those inequities, and no students are left out or left behind. As we know, the pandemic and learning from home and emergency online distance learning and teaching really widened that gap and that digital divide. One of the things that HyFlex learning isn't, and this is discussed on this next slide here, and it's HyFlex learning, although this is one method that's been used during the pandemic, HyFlex learning isn't streaming all of your face-to-face classes. Okay, so one of the responses was that this is an approach to do it. And from my own experience, and this is something we tried a little while ago, we tried to learn how to knit. And this is a little bit off topic, but one of our PD sessions at the Mind Lab was to all knit a square, and we joined this together and create scarves to support people in need who needed a warm scarf. They went to charity. And we ran a session online. We ran a session on face-to-face, and the camera was set up, and I was trying to learn how to knit by watching a webcam. I just didn't have a clue of how to do it, and I still can't knit now. So that's a good example of how it doesn't always translate to put a face-to-face lesson online. I know Dave was actually there, and he was in there in person, and I'm sure he's a much better knitter than I am. And Mila is an expert knitter, so yeah, it disadvantaged me. So we've got a diagram on the next page that will hopefully make it a little bit clearer, and Mila's going to talk through that.
Well, and thanks for sharing that thing about knitting, since next Monday I'll plan with Anna what we're going to do for the next winter challenge, so I'll definitely remember that. Blended, if we compare blended to HyFlex, so typically blended would mean that there would be the online asynchronous, meaning that you can study online whatever time suits you, and then there's the online synchronous, so that it would be, for example, the knitting, everyone doing that at the same time, and for example using webcams, and then the face-to-face. And what tends to happen in blended is that the content is different for these three things, and this is, I said that I might bring some examples from the life with the 7-year-old. She loved the time that we were here in COVID isolation. It was fully online asynchronous, and she loved the opportunities, the things that she got to do. Unfortunately, there was no connection to the school, and the learning was completely different. The content was completely different what the kids were doing in class at the same time. So that's the idea of HyFlex, then, that there are these different modes and students can choose between them, but the content is actually the same for all of those. So what I, for example, did now that you were in your breakout rooms talking about these things, I talk to the camera for those ones that are viewing this afterwards, so that I'll say that do the exact same task, chat with someone at home about the experience like you saw on Gray. So kind of making sure that we don't need to double the content and make different content, that it's the same learning opportunities regardless which of these you choose. That's it, I think, in a nutshell. So EduCourse article, if you want to read more about HyFlex, that 7 things you should know about it, is a really good one. For example, saying that each class session and learning activity is offered in person, synchronously online and asynchronously online. Students can decide for each class or activity or day how to participate. And central to this model is the principle that the learning is equivalent regardless of the mode. So this is something that we've tried, for example, in our program in DCL to do now that thankfully face-to-face is possible again. So we make it possible that some who choose to come to Auckland face-to-face do the same tasks on face-to-face than the ones that are doing it in Zoom at the same time synchronously, and also the opportunity to view the recording and do the same exact tasks on their own time. And when you heard those definitions and now know a bit more what HyFlex means, have you, or do you now realize that you've actually been doing that? Is there some, to some extent at least? I'll pop you into breakout rooms that are a bit bigger so that you get more discussion going on, so that you can share there, and we'll
probably have to go for about 6 minutes on this one, I think, Mila.
Yeah, yes. I'll open the rooms for 6 minutes.
If everyone's shown up, Normai Hokumai, welcome back. Good to see you all. One of the things that Mila mentioned earlier on was that if someone was taking part in this asynchronously and weren't with us right now in this synchronous format, they would miss out on some of those discussions. So what we thought would be good, so we're walking the talk and we're hopefully making this HyFlex. But if people could share some of their ideas, their thoughts, their aha moments, so that anybody watching this later might feel like they've had an opportunity to learn a bit more about it. So would anybody be happy to share how they might have been doing a bit of HyFlex learning already?
I don't mind leaping in, but it's a slightly different example because I went into the discussion groups thinking, oh yeah, not doing that yet. And then suddenly realized as we were talking that we had done something, but it wasn't quite in a learning context. So I've just changed role, but prior to my current role, I was at NZQA, and one of the important things there that we were exploring was whakatau, and how in a COVID situation do you do whakatau and keep to your tikanga and kawa when you can't meet together. And where we got to after working through a whole lot of things are going, oh, we can't do that face-to-face, protocol won't allow us, we edged towards it. And I just realized that we probably got to a HyFlex moment without realizing it, and that the solution we did end up coming up with was a solution where if you were in the office, you could participate face-to-face. If you weren't, you could live stream it so you could participate, and then if you couldn't be there because of a timing issue, you could watch the streamed recording later on. And that meant that we could still achieve it. We still could follow tikanga and kawa, but I think if I'm hearing what you guys are saying, we probably tripped over HyFlex without learning it, without realizing it.
That's great to hear, Darren. Mila, Dave, myself, Lisa went through a similar scenario with our whakatau and welcoming people into our organisation as well. We had to do a similar thing, and Dave's our #1 musician and guitarist too, so he was live streaming to everybody listening in, and people could hear it, and then we'd have a korero. And I think one time the whai korero was actually online and part of the online session and not there in face-to-face. So yeah, we had a good go at that as well. So that's a good reflection. Thanks for sharing that, Darren. Great. Anyone else?
I use Google websites, classroom sites, and I put really all my content on there for all my classes. And so up to a point, I mean, it is possible to do the course by following through from link to link to link like that. And so I did that initially to cover all sorts of things, you know, like student absence or people needing to go back over stuff or quicker ones wanting to go faster. And and I do use that within the classroom as my leap off point from my talking to now we're going to this site, then we're coming back to talking and then off to that site and so on. So I guess in some ways it's a start. The choice isn't there for the students really to pick entirely one way or the other, but it's a support which actually and sometimes does become the sole support. For example, I've got a year 13 girl who isn't timetabled into a class because there's only one. So she's following the site through and I'm occasionally helping her, but really it's yeah, her and sometimes me.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great, Sue, and you're completely right. There's lots of tools that can support that central learning hub where everybody accesses the learning from. And you know, as we know, the correspondence school has been doing this. You know, one of the largest student body in the whole of the country, and they've been providing that sort of learning for a long, long time. So it's possible to do that. It's just ensuring that all those elements are there to support the learner. And on this next slide, we've got a bit of a framework that can really help us delve a bit more deeply and thinking critically about whether we're actually applying those sorts of ideas and concepts. And this is a newer version of the Community of Inquiry framework from Garrison. And this is one of the key texts that we talk about in quite a few of our courses. And Garrison and his buddies talked about if you're creating a Community of Inquiry framework in online teaching originally, you need these three key areas based on teaching presence, social presence, and cognitive presence. And these areas were defined in different ways. And I'm just going to tell you the definitions because you're going to go away and talk about these in a moment. And the teaching presence is defined as the design, the facilitation, and direction of cognitive and social processes for the purpose of realizing personally meaningful and educationally worthwhile outcomes. And the social presence is defined as the ability of participants in the community. So everybody who's in that classroom or that learning space to project themselves socially and emotionally as real people. So perhaps you're not just an avatar, or you're not just a name with no face. You can get their whole person, their real person, their full personality through the medium of communication being used. So whether that's online or face-to-face. And the cognitive presence is defined as to the extent of which the participants in any particular configuration of a community of inquiry, and we've talked about some of those configurations this evening, are able to construct meaning through sustained communication. So how do they build new knowledge? How do they get engaged with that content? How do they actually create something meaningful? So the new version here by Ameleni and Di Stefani actually places the social presence more at the middle, because as we've gone on, we realized how that social connection, building the whakawhanaungatanga and understanding the wairua of the people around you, has a lot more power than perhaps the teaching presence and the cognitive presence. And actually social presence goes between those two areas a lot more strongly than previously thought. So we're going to add another layer of complexity on top of this, because this original model was just about online learning. We're now, when talking about HyFlex Learning, going to be talking about asynchronous and synchronous learning. And Mila's devised a wonderful task for us all to give a go, and it's using Padlet. And we're going to be split into three different groups. One group is going to be online synchronous. So that's like we're doing now, teaching online, face-to-face, all in the same place and in the same time, the same galaxy. Online asynchronous, which could be from anywhere, any galaxy, and you're doing it anytime, but you're interacting online, and face-to-face. So those three main modes of delivering content and interacting with people. But thinking in our groups, how do you establish a teaching presence? How do you establish a social presence? And how do you establish and maintain a cognitive presence as well? So we're going to go away into three different groups. And Mila, do you want to let us know which group is going to be looking into which area?
So there's the name of the group. When you go to the group on top of the, you'll see what your group name is. So when I open the breakout room, they are named after those three things. So you'll see it there. And we'll see you back here in 6 minutes, and perhaps you get something.
Give it a go.
Padlet, yes, give it a go.
No wrong answer.
Welcome back. That was quick. And as you might have noticed, I added the level of complexity by putting you to actually sign into Padlet when you do those. And you might have realized that there was the one of those things that was already there related to that particular thing. So if we use tools, for example, like Padlet, if we want also asynchronous feeling of community and social presence going, we actually need that. So if you, for example, Sylvia posts so that you are logged in as you to Padlet, someone who's viewing this asynchronously and putting their ideas can comment, for example, on your ideas and like your ideas, and then you get a notification so that there's that discussion also after. If it's just anonymous, that connection is not made. You don't hear the amazing things and so on. That's why sometimes that annoying, that you have to sign into something is there just to create the connection.
Sadly, we can't make any comments, Mila, on these.
Yes, I'll allow them now. I'll allow them now. Yes. True. I listened a really good podcast recently. It's the lead off learning one, where there was what was her name? Stephanie Howell was talking. She kind of does similar thing that what we do at the Mind Lab, helping teachers to upskill and use technology in good ways. And she was saying that yes, teachers are having a tech fatigue since there's like too long of a days and everything's online and Zoom fatigue. But then she was saying that the kids are not. The kids are enjoying it. They are not having tech fatigue. And that's the same thing that I realized at home, that the 7-year-old, gosh, she loved that she could do those things at home with tech on her own time, the agency and the task. Oh, she just loved it. And now that she went back to school, ta-da, she can't do that. So it is like, we have to remember that it's been a steep learning curve, but we can now work wiser. And that's perhaps the HyFlex is one solution to that, more sustaining way. The Betty who Tim said that is kind of the grandfather of HyFlex. He has already in 2010 talked about the 4 pillars of HyFlex, and there's learner choice, which is in big part something that we've been pushing towards anyway. So this is one way of embracing that, providing equivalent learning opportunities regardless of participation modes, reusability, which of course makes it easier for us teachers. So work smarter, not harder, would be the goal. And accessibility, that Betty talks about, that might be the one that we never fully reach. We know that there's the gap, but we need to push towards it. Could be that we never fully get there, that it's not the same exact opportunities, digital opportunities for everyone, but that's the important goal anyways, and we have moved towards that, definitely. This is just a task for you to think now after the session, and of course you can continue the discussions in Twitter and tag us in it, or come to our programs and continue discussions there, continue your studies or start your studies with the Mind Lab. Lisa is here today, so she's a good person to talk to if it's one of these intakes that you want to join, if it's in July, if it's the micro-credential, or in August, the DCL program that we is now competency-based. We just got approved for, yay! So that's easier in August, whoever is signing up, not any more grades in the same way, and also new learning management system for that students get to use. Same thing also applies for the masters. That's why we haven't, Tim, done this in a long time, since you've been working in other programs, but it was a pleasure again being here with you. Is there anything, Lisa, that you would like to say?
Thank you, Mila. Just that please reach out if you have any questions. I've seen the difference that the postgrad certificate in digital and collaborative learning has made, and I love what it does for student learning. And we're all here to support you in whatever path you choose. So please reach out.
Yeah, if you've already done it, push others now to do it and support them on that journey. Okay, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining. Karakia whakakapi. Ka whakairia te tapu kia wātea ai te ara. Kia turu ki whakataha ai, kia turu ki whakataha ai. Haumi e, hui e, tai.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Cool, awesome, awesome.
Lovely
Thank
to
you,
see
Sue.
you. Pomari,
Good seeing you.
Thank you.
nice to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Hey, thanks for coming along.
Bye.
Great to see you. Bye-bye. Good to see you, Jeff. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome. See ya.